Welcome back to Highway Through Health. We're not a crisis line, we're not a therapy show, and we're not licensed healthcare providers. What we are is a place where lived experience is taken seriously because too many people have discovered the more clearly they speak, the worse they're treated. We share personal experience not to give medical advice, but so that when people encounter the kinds of situations we discuss, they're ready to recognize patterns and respond effectively. This show is about language, power, and what happens when systems stop listening and start translating people into problems. If you've ever felt misheard, mislabeled, or punished for staying coherent under pressure, you're in the right place.
Dana, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, hon. How are ya?
I'm doing fine. Yourself?
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful day here.
Good. What is it? We
Yeah.
finally we got some kind of a front hanging over, so we're getting off and on rain, bad rain. So,
We
um,
had that
we're-
kind of sweep through for a day or two, and now it's kind of a little more stable, but then they're expecting like triple digit weather again. I'm like, no, could live without
oh
that.
boy, yeah, me too. That not fun. Takes
Nah.
sucks the life out of me. It's a little too hot.
Yeah, here too. I can't with my heart problems and all. It just becomes a little bit too iffy for me to do much of anything past a certain point in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get to do that, don't we? Kind of measure out our days in terms of what we can and can't do, and then it's like, well, I can go there, but can I get back? You have to factor that into the
Yes.
equation too.
Yes.
Um, so all kinds of stuff that we get. So I kind of feel really good though about last episode when we did the emancipation thing, because it really is time to just kick this stuff down the curb. This
Oh yeah.
oppressive mindset and these people that want to act, behave, threaten, do the kind of things that they do to people to to try and intimidate you from putting these things together, because that's really what we're trying to do, isn't it? We're trying to put this mystery together and say, okay, this happened, and then in between there's some kind of a process, some kind of an emotional adaptation process that takes place through all this that yeah, it was very choice dependent, though, wasn't it? Because we had to choose to fight back. We had to choose to put that line in the sand. We had to choose to become defiant. There's a whole lot of that that goes into it. And I think
Yeah.
maybe when you get into some of these more subtle things, like lately I've been listening to some of the Flavius Josephus. He wrote a couple books, I guess. I've got through that. Some of the early years of the church, what was going on back in those days, what could help, cause a lot of confusion and what's more of kind of a simple, what ought to be more of a simple process. And you learn about those martyrs, you know, and Justin the martyr. Then there was the woman, I don't want to butcher her name, so I won't say it, her and her friend. Those two were probably a little bit more impressive. But people don't understand I think when you've crossed over and you've come back, there is absolutely no way any level of compromise would ever cause you to do something to obstruct with your ability to cross over and come back again. I mean, it's almost like that level of no becomes indelible. It did for me anyway, because then I said I'm pushing back all the time. So when you get these people who would face, torture and death because they're not going to deny what they already know to be true. They've been through this, they've done this, there's no way, you can put a gun to my head, you can do whatever, burn me at the stake. It really doesn't matter. I'm not going to sit there and deny what happened to me.
Amen.
And to do that and to be willing to put yourself through that, which could happen, it's not over yet. So you just never know what you're going to run into. You have to be ready to do that. And it's not it's not a little thing, because I look at that as, beware of that person that can destroy your soul in hell. Because if you're willing to compromise on something like that, even to the point of causing your physical death, but it's not going to affect you at all. I know it's not going to affect me at all. You know, it wouldn't affect you at all. You'd just be definitely in a better place that you've already experienced again, got refamiliarized with, right?
Yeah.
So it really does get down to that accepting helplessness. To do that, you have to accept a level of helplessness. You have to put creature comfort ahead of the absolute truth, which is no, you're here to go through this. You're going to be an example in one way, shape, or form. Once you pick up that cross and start walking with it, you are going to be an example. So you'll be hated by some people and liked by a small number of them. At least now, we know in a few years it'll probably be a whole lot different. But right now we're having to punch through, a lot of the stigma that doesn't show any signs whatsoever of going away. So, I really feel like it gives me more reason to say we have to really push back on this stuff harder, because to have those kinds of discussions without it going off into the weeds or falling off into ridicule. I mean, these are very deliberate decisions that these people have made. Why are they making these decisions? Because they've had something very serious to weigh it against. They're not guessing. They're not doing stuff out of, well, I believe this is going to happen once I finally die here. No, they've probably already been over there. That's really what cements the conviction in. And it goes back to bolstering kind of the things you and I have been trying to say is, what if we do say that we don't have to wait for our body to die? What does that mean then? And keep it serious and respectful conversation and respecting where people have gone through to uncover what that pathway really, really looks like. And I think a lot of people could benefit, but wow. Um, the resistance there is huge, and I think I know why, because it really breaks that last bound of helplessness, doesn't it? That point, no one can be controlled. You're done.
Yeah, realizing your own sovereignty, and this is what any cult is actually becomes afraid of, because those who have allowed an egoic and material or materialistic, and sometimes just does come into both. And it
Hmm.
certainly does for these for the pseudoscience of psychiatry. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of control. That's a lot of forced poisoning. That's a lot of taking people's property via a side path corporate eminent domain, by
Hmm.
kidnapping, identity theft, mail misdirection, and then it's just by debt. And a lot of this will be something that I feel is being more and more exposed. Because when we call this a cult, we're certainly not joking about it. It's very
No.
serious. And it has hit, it's just been an ongoing thing. And it's been happening with a much more full force, I guess you could say, since the Nazis, because this has already had been started. The eugenics movement was really had a lot of supporters in America. The Nazis imported it to Germany and took it to the next level. And what
Mhm.
happened was the U.S. re-imported it.
Yeah.
And with the poisoning, and really doing this in a very sort of more low-key fashion. Again, what we saw in Maryland with Dr. Delirium and the experiments, and what grew into MK Ultra, what Hopkins did,
Yep.
what the hospital, any of the hospitals in the urban areas that used to be industrialized have really put pedal to the metal with pushing this eugenics poisoning, as the jobs have been exported and they've wanted a very convenient excuse for why things are falling apart, because the reality is not what they're saying it is. That's a bullshit. That's a cover.
Right.
That's really a cover for more profiteering. And you'll see it in any of the poorer urban areas. You see a lot of this happening. And again, it's that eminent domain via corporate and health.
Hmm.
It's not new. It's just that it is now becoming prominent again. But as we've seen it in the news, as these things are being exposed, as the obvious lies are coming to the fore, both with a lot of the identity theft and fraud, with the fraud that's been perpetrated by the people supposedly in charge of these programs.
Hmm.
It's not ignorable. And then we see the extraordinary harms of all that drugging. And this is where a lot of the overdose deaths are coming from, because they're lying to people who have already
Right.
been looking for an exogenic source of dopamine, one way or another. And you can't be giving people stuff that then takes it away. Then there's no happiness, no joy. You make people then turn right back to whatever substance it is that they were actually trying to get a hold of, trying to get their lives back on track, and instead you force feed them poison. And
Right.
this is just, it's got to stop. It's just lie after lie after lie, just made there for that drug for structure to continue to extract
Mm.
money, extract power, from people,
Right.
and remove them from their sovereignty and their free will. And people are now at a point where they're standing up and saying this shit has got to stop. It's got to stop. It is
Yeah.
amoral. It is materialistic. It is satanic, and it's not allowing people the spiritual experience and the freedom to express themselves as pieces of God. It is not
Hmm.
allowing us that freedom to connect, and to connect with one another
Right.
as sovereign beings and a piece of creation. It's not allowing us to respect the earth as a piece and part of God's creation.
Yep.
It's disallowing for what actual evolution is, because it's that spiritual component that makes a huge difference.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah. Yep. We talked about that a lot, how it's not, this moniker of science is not neutral. It's very, very hostile. And
Yes.
these are just not the kind of conversations that we could have with anybody in the healthcare field and feel comfortable having them, because, we both have experienced firsthand the lack of ethics. We've seen what they will do to push their narratives. We've seen firsthand. I was driven into a severe health crisis. So were you. I mean, they actually killed you and brought you back to
Several
life.
times. Several times.
And you're looking at these people, and when they're sitting there putting drugs in you that spiked my blood pressure to the highest level ever recorded, and my heart rate to the highest rate ever recorded, and they act like that's not our problem. We didn't do that. I mean, they're killing you literally, and they
Yes.
won't stop, and you can't do anything about it. And I think people are so sick of the lie culture, and I think we're finally starting to get a cultural feel for what the lie culture does and how it manifests itself in people's lives in this horrifically toxic way. It's not benign. The making friends with deception is not a benign mindset. It will come after you. It'll come after me. It'll can come after anybody who basically has the kind of practice we do because of what it develops in us, and we're not afraid to call people out on garbage.
Right.
So, we're expected, especially if you're talking about religious matters. I think a lot of people expect this jovial kind of person who's going to compensate their way into or negotiate their way from one point to the next. And this had nothing to do with negotiating between, this had to do with gut it out. This had to do with stop it. The key to, I guess, opening that doorway was putting that stake in the ground. And you have to, and I mean, putting it in hard, and you don't budge. That's where it really starts to activate the kind of energy that you need to open the door to the Holy Spirit. So much of this, when I look at the reaction from the psych industry, I spent almost 7 years in Michigan post event, a little bit over that, I think, a couple days over that, not much longer. But it was nothing but a hostile environment that was created by the psych industry, that was sustained by the psych industry, that bent over backwards to make sure there could be no legitimate conversation with anybody. Because until those people apologize in a courtroom, there's no way I would trust any of them. And I don't care who you are, or who they are within that field. You've shown me how you act. You've shown me what you do. You've shown me how you behave. We have lots of people who have similar experiences with that, and I'm just not going to. I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to tolerate it as part of my healthcare. I'm
Yeah.
not going to tolerate it as part of my, life philosophy that I'm forced to adapt to. I just don't want
Yeah.
to do that.
It's
Done.
fraud. It's fraud and it's eugenics. And I've caught them doing fraud. And in my case too, more than a few times a day, they blatantly ignored my do not resuscitate orders. I'm still pissed off about that.
Yeah.
But I have to look at it like, this is God's plan. I can't be
Mhm.
angry because in 2003, I had actually, made that decision to return. And I didn't
Mhm.
have to, but I did. So
Yep.
at that point, so I continue to go back to that. It's like, it hasn't been easy. I will never say it has been. But I knew at a place and a point that this was not just me. Nobody lives a life for just you. It is with your soul family. It is with your guides. It is with your
Mhm.
angels. It is something that you plan with God prior to each incarnation. And I, knew that I had certainly struggled because of my background, the childhood essay, a lot of other things, and then just becoming a pure medical experiment, and
Right.
somebody that they were literally killing to grab life insurance money off of. I obviously am not happy about that. That is a lot for me to have to process. Um,
Mhm.
but I can only say that it's allowed me to continue to speak up and out, to expose all this, because I don't want it happening to anybody else. It's
Right.
bad enough it happened to me, but my point is I don't want it to happen to anybody else. They know they did bad. I have the evidence that they did bad. And I was saying all along, knock it the fuck off. I was writing to senators. I was writing to
Yeah.
congressmen. I was making phone calls to the FBI, to the state investigator's office, and I've continued to do so. And it's at a point now where they even don't, I don't think they necessarily want to speak to me because they know I'm telling the truth. And it
Mhm.
would make them confront a lot of things that should have been confronted. Somebody should have listened to me, and somebody should have been helping me, not themselves, but me. I'm a
Right.
citizen. I deserve that. And I didn't deserve to be mistreated like that while other people profiteered. But like I say, now so much fraud is being exposed. People know I'm not in it for the money. I'm barely getting by. But
Yeah.
at least, at least now I'm in a beautiful place. I live with a landlord who's just an absolute peach. I love living with him. I love the area I'm in. I can look at my time. I obviously did not like being in a homeless shelter. Obviously, don't like losing
Mm.
everything I've ever owned, everything I've ever worked for, including my identity and my life. But having said that, I can prove that it was all stolen. People know that's part of a ring. Um, and my best thing is that I can stand up to that.
Right.
So I can't, if that's where God wants me, then that's where God wants me. I'm not scared of anything. I certainly don't have fear. I know that I sustained a lot of damage through all those treatments, the
Mhm.
poisoning, the electrocution. My heart problems have gotten exponentially worse. I got brain damage I didn't have before. But I now at least have a bed. I was being forced to sleep on the floor with cockroaches crawling on my face at 3 a.m. I was tired of that shit. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything that I've been through is a real testimony to the depravity of other people, the profiteering and the lies of other people, um, and my determination to continue to go on, to have a place to rebuild my nervous system and my life, and to continue doing the things that I was aiming for back in Baltimore anyway. It's
Right.
okay that I do it out of state. I don't ever want to go back to Maryland again. They are the most corrupt state. And a lot of corruption has come out of there, and I'm glad it's being exposed, but I'm heartbroken for anybody else who's had to suffer like we have.
Right.
As long as I can make it a better tomorrow, as long as I can make it a better today, and for myself and others, and a better tomorrow for everybody that's more honest with integrity, where this isn't happening anymore. These kidnappings, these poisonings, these electrocutions, these taking of property. That's got to stop. It's brutal. It's cruelty. It's Nazis. It's Nazis all over again. I don't know how else to put that.
Yeah, because for me, it's a big part of the recovery is to completely put these people behind me. And I'm going back to using
Yes.
the same kind of language I was using before, only now I'm using biblical language and in process terms, which I think that's the way we're trying to discuss this as best. That's the best way I can describe what we're trying to discuss is figure out what that process is and how those words that are looked at today is maybe just a flat sentence. They have a whole lot more depth to them when they're applied in certain ways and helping people understand what that is to have that thing start activating in your life and bring that level of intelligence and all that stuff in. You have to be able to use the language appropriate to the experience. There is no psych
Yes.
language appropriate to to our experience that's not pathological. So and it's hard enough to get people to stand up for things when you know you're protected by the law. Try standing up for something when you know there's absolutely no protection waiting for you under the law, and very few, if anyone, that you know will even come and stand up for you.
Yeah.
That's how stigmatized the psych industry has created this little bubble that they suck people in there. And you know what? You get sucked into that bubble and you're dealing with a spiritual issue, then you're good luck. Good luck to you. And that's a deliberately created environment that we've done. We've deliberately allowed that to fester. We have made sure that that has taken root in the court system to where that can be used without, much as a blink of an eye as just a blanket condemnation. Oh yeah, one of those religious nuts. They've got to put them away. Better drug them. Yeah, it's just when it's nothing but counterproductive
Yeah.
and it's mandatory, you got to say, have we reached peak idiocy? And
Yeah.
I'm absolutely not going along with it under any circumstances anymore. I'm not
No.
even going to give these people, I don't even respect the profession. Psychiatry, zero. You're done.
No.
Don't
It's
even
fraud.
talk to. Yeah, if you're a psychologist who's out there going, well, maybe I know, maybe we could try some different things,
No.
a Jerry Marzinski type or somebody that's out there that's not being you know, de derogatory when talking to
Yeah.
people about spiritual experiences, then maybe we can find some common ground and help you help other people because we know that the emotional relief valve that this provides is immense. How can I do this for 20 years if I don't have some kind of emotional release valve? What is that? I know what it is. It's the Holy Spirit when I allow it to come in and speak to it and be brave enough to do that. It takes care of all that. And it leaves me a pretty peaceful, pretty happy person in spite of my circumstances. And that does absolutely under no circumstances mean that I'm crazy. But if I say that in that kind of way or have the discussions that we've been having around a psychiatrist, I would get labeled. I, I, I may get kidnapped. And if I lived in Canada, I might get mated. You never know.
Yeah, and this is why it just all needs to be brought to a screeching halt, and alternatives need to be built
Right.
that bring back actual communities and spirituality that's not based on something dogmatic but something experiential.
Right. Right.
And this is where it needs to go in that direction. The
Hmm.
rest of this, this trying to use, law for something that's just opinion. They have a profit motive, and it's very, very clear. And it's all funded by big pharma. It's nothing in there that is actually is helping people transform their lives and move on. It is
No.
all about creating permanent patients, poisoning them, and selling more drugs. There has been nothing positive that has come out of it
Never
at
having
all. Yeah. And now we're seeing, all these
about never
homicides.
having
Yeah. And when you're seeing homicides and all that have gone up, it is drugs. I'm so tired of there being any other excuse and nobody actually looking at that and saying it's the fucking drugs. They know it's the drugs. And why are you
Right.
pouring gasoline on a fire with this? Stop it. It's been more than enough already. And by force drugging children and carpet bombing them with these poisons, now you have people, these men who are using these drugs to drug their wives up so bad and inviting people in to rape them, filming it and putting it on a computer. This is sickening. This is needed to stop for more than a few minutes. This is disconnecting people from themselves, from their conscience, from their consciousness, from any kind of spirituality or morality, and giving them this sort of excuse. For some of them, it just provides an excuse to do some nasty stuff to other people that otherwise wouldn't happen, wouldn't be allowed, and nobody would be given a pass to it. It's nonsense. This whole lie and this whole myth of so-called mental illness has got to stop. Put a pin in it. It's over. People like serial killers, they plan their shit ahead of time. So I don't want to hear all the, they didn't know what they were doing. No, bullshit. They knew exactly what they were doing. They planned it. They plotted it. That was their whole goal. So this is just outsized, stupid myth that is nothing but harmful. And you're bringing innocent people in and destroying their lives without any purpose other than profiteering. And we have somebody who's tried to send a message. I don't get the messages in chat here. It's not coming through, but so we do have somebody who's here. I don't know if they have something.
No, Daniel. Sorry, Daniel. I'm blind, so I but you know that. So I saw you pop up there. How's it going, Daniel? Thank you for joining.
I'm good.
Good. So yeah, I mean, when I look at what they're doing, they're kind of pushing people into these degradation rituals. I mean, for me, when I was at Pine Rest, I would have had to say that I was crazy and just deny everything. Say that I was psychotic. Say that, oh yeah, I had some momentary thing happen to me. Well, I'm all better now. Yeah, those drugs really. I mean, it was like I would have had to have engaged in this kind of incredibly destructive degradation ritual, giving in, subjugating my very real experiences to their profit-driven delusions, which they tried to shove down my throat pretty much at gunpoint because they're the ones that played the court card, not me. When it comes to the coercion side, who did that? It wasn't me. They can go back to court and apologize because that's where we're going to start with this whole thing. I'm not going to have people sit around and lie about me in courtrooms and misrepresent things to the level that was done. Be as irresponsible as they are just because they know they've got the legal industry all bottled up and it's impossible, thanks to the way they've indemnified a lot of these clowns, that it's virtually impossible for anybody to sue them, no matter how good of a case you have. So it's created this condition where we have low ethics cowboys out there running around throwing drugs at everything and anything that moves, thinking that that's going to solve it, trampling over people's religious rights, especially in spiritual expressions. And I was, as I repeatedly told them to leave me alone, I don't think I was ambiguous about that statement in any way, shape, or form. I don't think I was ambiguous about telling them I've been clear since the very beginning, which they recorded in notes. And I was, just because you can't deal with the reality that I'm communicating, that shouldn't be my flipping problem. That's your problem.
Right. I tried to leave a known criminal and known domestic abuser, but he was colluding with them and the research that they wanted for coercive control, for domestic
Mhm.
abuse. What is it like with an autistic woman? How many times will she die? Misusing QHHT in order to study what happens afterwards, in order to try and control somebody's spirituality, in order to do these psychic driving things that were coming out of MK Ultra and out of Canada, where that fucking butcher studied and then went to
Right.
Hopkins. And they think I don't know this. They think I can't fucking read. I might be dyslexic, but I'm not stupid. And
Right.
I was able to go through and trace all that back. Now, she's not practicing currently in Maryland, to the best of my knowledge. It says temporarily closed, but I aim to shut her the fuck down in every state that she's in.
Right.
Because she is fraud. She is doing abuse. People have tried to complain about her online, and I'm not the only one that had hypnotherapy misused on me. I'm not the only one that had QHHT misused on me. I talked to somebody who was up in Pennsylvania who had the same shit happen to her. And I'm like, you know what? This is outsized. You are really raping people's souls at this point. You are knowingly raping people's souls. Hopkins has admitted to doing things with consciousness studies, to misusing it. I don't know the details. They weren't quite published. It had to do with clergy. But they are also doing it through Shepherd Pratt, where the electrocutions happen. If they wanted to actually help me, number one, they would have listened to my DNR anyway. And B, number two, when I died of heart problems, which they were refusing to acknowledge, then they would have left me dead. They wouldn't have shocked me with ECT, which they knew for a fact I didn't want. And that was fraud. And I caught it on, on the billing and everything else. And they damn sure wouldn't have been sending me back to a known domestic abuser. After I had objected, after he was forcing me so many times into a hospital situation, they knew goddamn good and well I didn't need to be in and didn't want to be in. And that's all to serve a false narrative. And I am furious about it. But it's like I said, I'm not violent by any means, and they knew I was trying to get out of there. So what the hell were they doing, leaving me with somebody where I was begging to leave, literally begging for years? Now the onus of this is on who? And all I was trying to do was leave. He's allowed to beat the shit out of me, nearly break my cheeks, leave my eyes black, have my lip busted. I'm in the hospital, and they don't even want to send an officer to talk to me. Why? Because they were in service of a false narrative, and instead they want to say I was doing drugs. There weren't no goddamn drugs found in my system other than what was prescribed to me.
Yeah. Well,
I'm furious.
Whatever cheap. They're so used to dealing with stigma that they know that they can throw whatever stigma they need to out there. They know what works. They know what sticks. They know what words that they know how to amp it up. They know how to escalate, right? Linguistically escalate the situation, that not medically, not scientifically, not from an understanding perspective, but from just a hysteria perspective, which allows them to do even more and even more to you. So it's I mean, if there were at least an oncologist can say I cure X% of my patients. You know what I mean? These people can't show positive results for any of them. And I mean any of them, because it's completely subjective. And the way things shift and change and whatnot, the odds of that person using those kind of techniques and that kind of ideology and actually helping anyone do anything other than be comfortable with their own evil, I don't see that they can do any of that, which is why I think we have so many of these shootings, because you mix these drugs with people who become comfortable with their own evil, and pretty soon they don't really care. It doesn't matter. It's a big video game anyway.
That's another issue right there too, is those first person shooter video games. These kids get so consumed by that, and there's already, even prior to the pandemic, there was such a tendency already for this isolation, this drugging kids up there. It's not socialization anymore. Very much a brainwashing and a tendency to be shuttling folks into mental health, which is a bullshit. And it really has not done anybody any favors whatsoever. I'm glad
Right.
again to see that this stuff is being addressed, that these algorithms are addictive, that people are on the what I call beepity boops too much, because it's whether it's social media or a video game, it has entirely consumed lives. There is no more, even when I'm going out to concerts and things, when I've
Mhm.
had the ability to do that, so many people are just so consumed and just buried in their phones instead of talking to the people around them. And it really seems it's just mind boggling to me.
Mhm.
I don't have obviously I don't have a problem that's been my a major way for me to communicate has been social media and being somebody who writes and has been a writer for a magazine and
Mhm.
has written reviews because all this even when I was disabled and literally couldn't walk. That was still like kind of my the only people I was able to start communicating with a wider group of people out of that. And being autistic, it's hard too. So it made it
Yeah.
easier for me to go into a social situation, or concerts and things. Because sometimes I knew the bands and sometimes I knew some of the people. So to be able to reconnect a little bit via social media, that kind of provided a little bridge for me to
Mhm.
feel a little bit more comfortable and less, centrally overwhelmed. Uh, and so that's very helpful. But when you just see people so that don't have this pulling themselves out of the electronic,
Right.
to just be social. Because for me, when I have somebody sitting in front of me, I not on the beepity boops. I'm there fully present with that person. I don't like
Mhm.
that whole, it's rude. Um,
Yeah.
I just don't care for it. I understand something, you may want to check, see if it's an emergency. If it's not an emergency, put it away. And I
Yeah.
feel like people have lost that ability to make that decision for themselves. Uh,
Mhm.
and they get caught in what we've discussed before about the drift. And they get pulled along instead of making up their own mind about what it is they want and how they feel. And I just see too much of that. It really is a very corporate thing. I feel it's a very brainwashing thing. Um, and an unconscious control thing. And people do need to be aware that we talk about informed choices
Mhm.
and all that needs to be something else that's brought up just more in the general conversation. It's they're not really making an informed choice if you're just sort of going along with because everybody else is doing it or you think no, you can
Right.
still make choices. You can say this is what I do at this time, I do this at that time, this is I'm not just going to go along to get along. You have to really know yourself well enough and know what feels right and what feels good and quit ignoring things that make you feel uncomfortable. Speak up, speak
Right.
out, make your own decisions because chances are if it's making you uncomfortable, it's not good for you.
Right. Yeah, and when it's not settling well with you,
Yeah.
and that would also be the case if you can't connect with a person, don't keep trying to connect with them in a with the psych industry, especially. I guess they were trying to talk. They'll say they were trying to talk to me. I'll say you weren't even attempting to
Yeah.
talk to me because all you have to do
Right.
is look at the paper and then look at your court testimony, and you'll see there was absolutely no attempt to communicate anything whatsoever. And when you can finally grow up and admit to that, then maybe we can start making some progress. But until then, you have to oppose this kind of stuff with all your worth because these people showed absolutely no remorse whatsoever towards what they did, how they acted, not only during but after. So these are people that will bend over backwards to cover their butts and protect the institutions and keep drugging people even though it doesn't work, it's ineffective. But you keep that stigma up and smear it all over stuff that might just work. I guess I look at it what we're doing a lot like Jerry Marzinski says is like, well, you can come try it. Do you want to get better? Okay, well then try this and maybe we can dialogue. We don't have all the answers, but we can say that for sure that if you start doing certain things that you will notice a difference in how you think. And when that
Yes.
starts happening, there'll be a difference in how you interface with people. And when that starts happening, everything about your life starts changing. So now how do we make it easy for people to do that, reflect those kinds of emotions, speak to each other in ways that, might make some psychologists or psychiatrists uncomfortable, but it certainly didn't make me uncomfortable. It's it helps
Right.
me, you know,
Same here.
uh, get
Yeah,
back
I
and deal with this, which is not
exactly.
easy.
Exactly. And for me, I had a major healing. And you would think that people would want to support that as opposed to sabotage and suppress it. But this is how
Mhm.
sickening, this is the level of sickening they are. They were using me as a mere research subject, as a lab rat. And I knew that, and I still know that. And
Mhm.
that is part of what makes me angry. And the thing is, they're afraid of me because they know that I know that. And I have wanted to, I've been like, listen, you can give me a lie detector test. You want to take me to court. I think, you know who's doing the fraud. You knew who was
Yeah.
doing the drug diversion. You knew who was doing all this all along because they've already paid off settlements. And I've seen it. I've seen the evidence of this. And I'm like, that's just hush money. But yet
Yeah.
you're still allowing them to do business in the city of Baltimore and in the state of Maryland. Now, how corrupt is that? And you've known for decades they have been abusing people and
Mhm.
stealing their identities and doing massive, massive, massive fraud, grant fraud, abuse of homeless people, the most vulnerable children, elderly,
Mhm.
pretending to shut up domestic violence shelters that are nothing but allowing somebody's relatives to live there free of charge and not
Right.
actually helping somebody like me. I am so fucking offended by that I don't even have words. And they were leaving me with a new
Right.
domestic abuser and then trying to say I had mental illness. Man, fuck you. Fuck you.
Well,
I'm so angry about that. And
yeah.
this is happening to far too many people. And yet they were going to poison me and electrocute me. I am so furious. And my
Mhm.
thing is this: yes, I'm always going to have lupus. Yes, I'm always going to have heart problems. Now I have far more brain damage than I would have had otherwise. So I have to live with that too. And my heart problems have gotten much worse. Having
Right.
said that, however, and my spinal damage is worse too. I notice it off and on. I mean, for as much better as it could have been had they just gotten me out of there and allowed my nervous system to re-regulate, no, they chose to do grievous harm to me
Mhm.
repeatedly and experiment on me past the point of death several times and collect money on fraudulent life insurance policies. This is sick. And
Yeah.
like I say, I know I'm not the only one it's been happening to. I know it's been a problem in Baltimore, but I don't doubt it's probably everywhere. It's just that I know Baltimore quite intimately. Um,
Mhm.
and this is just not okay. Um,
Right.
and their other thing too, Hopkins has a very lucrative deal with organ transplants. So of course they don't care that young men and women in the city are dying of violence and dying of other
Right.
things because then they turn around and sell the organs. So
They
this
are worth a lot.
Yes, and this is horrific. And again, it's been going on for decades. This is why nobody is actually addressing the problems of poverty, the problems of violence. These things could easily be solved. You just put good jobs back in there and allow people to go back to work and have affordable housing. But that's why they don't want to do that. Because it's
Oh,
more lucrative for a certain amount of people who are just absolutely amoral, evil, and satanic to line their pockets with blood money. That really is what
you
it's
know,
down to.
it's probably what I heard you express them was a lot of righteous moral outrage and
Oh yeah.
justifiable moral outrage, and it's that kind of justifiable moral outrage that people have been trying to negotiate out of discourse, right? I mean,
Yes.
no, it I remember coming out of that and coming out of crossing from over there to over here. Man, you talk about raging at injustice. There wasn't any injustice over there, and you knew what an absence of injustice felt like, and it's distinctly different from the environment that we are creating here. Well, what we're creating here is extremely toxic compared to what that was over there. But it all gets down to how much do you tolerate deception? in your life and in the lives of others, and do you let other people push it into your life? And when we're saying no down to the core of what we are, and we get some bigot with a prescription pad who says, no, my chemical imbalance theory trumps your constitutional, medical, and religious rights, and I'm going to force you to see things my way, whether it's helpful or not. I'll be the judge of whether it's helpful or not, not you. What the hell is that? That's certainly not medicine.
That's Nazism. That's
So
eugenics. And I'm
yeah,
tired of the soft
it
language
you know,
surrounding this. It's eugenics. And
yeah,
I really, this is why I say I am somebody who I want to make it real clear that my anger isn't towards these individuals, because I'm not somebody, they have perpetrated humongous harm and great violence upon me and
mm,
my person, and have violated me in ways I
yeah,
didn't think I could possibly be violated. And I was raped as a child. So this really is just beyond and
yeah,
beyond. Having said that, I'm
mm,
only somebody that would ever, be defensive. But at that, I tried to leave. But my thing is, I don't even use the word hatred. I don't have it in my vocabulary.
mm,
My thing is, for somebody to do that, there is already a system in place that allows that, that rewards that, and that pays that to happen. Because people who do this are obviously so disconnected from themselves that they have some kind of interior issue, and I would rather them be able to reconnect, get right with God, and move on. That's not my call. That's between them and God. So I will
mm,
pray for them. But in the interim, stay the hell away from me, because I don't want any of these people back in my life in any way, shape, form, or fashion in any time ever again.
right,
Period. And I don't like the fact that my belongings are called abandonment, and that allows them to legally take and sell them on eBay. That's not
right,
okay with me. Having said that, I guess I have to let that, play as it lays, because I have done everything in my power. I'm not stepping foot back there, because I don't want any possibility of somebody using their fraudulent false narratives. Have been out of Maryland 2+ years. Thank you, Jesus. I don't
yeah,
ever want to return, period, because
mm,
I know what they have done, and they know what they have done, and I know what I've reported to both the state authorities and the federal authorities and investigators and investigative reporters. And I'm telling the truth. I have no
yeah,
reason to be afraid, but I just don't want to put myself back into any position just for, again, this stuff is all very important to me, but it's not as important as my
mm,
freedom. It's not as important as my life. Uh,
right,
it's not as important as my rights. And I'm not giving anybody any excuse to try and, because what they were going to do is they were going to try and, fraudulently set me up and make it look like I would, and they were already starting to do this. Uh, and the Sante group, so again, another group of people that need to
mm,
go under the bus as soon as possible, were, a public private partnership. So, whatever. But they were going to set me up to be shot in a supposed mental health crisis. And they've been doing this to autistic people, and they've been doing it to elderly people. And of
sure
course,
happens a lot, doesn't it?
that's right. And we saw that with, God rest her soul, Sonia Massey out in Ohio.
Hmm.
And this is the same exact thing. They're setting people up just to shoot them. They collect on fraudulent life insurance policies. They make people into targets. And they do this in these homes, group homes, and the psych hospitals during these
Mm,
incarcerations. It's the same thing. And it needs to stop, and it needs to be exposed for what it is. It's nothing but eugenics fraud. These people come around with these lies, and it has needed to stop for more than a few minutes. I'm glad that the drumbeat's gotten louder. I'm grateful we're being heard, at least by Bobby Kennedy, and that people are looking at the fraud in so-called behavioral health, because it's very easy to do. Like you said, it's just arbitrary bullshit. Anybody can slap
mm,
a label on somebody because it's not provable, because it's just not true. It doesn't
right.
exist. If something doesn't
It
exist,
serves an ideology.
that's it. It serves profiteering purposes and nothing else.
Hmm.
Nary a damn
And
thing else.
And social control and making sure that you
Yes.
don't express yourself in certain ways and you
Yes.
don't make connections between things that they don't want connected and talked about. I mean, hey, why not? If you can get people comfortable with lying and saying, worshiping a liar is
Mhm.
Christianity, then
Mhm.
there you go. You've
Yeah.
you've short-circuited the whole thing.
Right.
You've ruined it because
Right.
you're you're taking away that necessary putting that line in the sand that okay, I'm going to be defiant from this point forward. I'm not going to, this is all just I felt like it was kind of like hedgehogging it, I was so into just I wanted to stay alive and stay out of a nursing home. And I just poured
Yes.
my energy into doing that, being an example for my kids to say, yeah, bad things can happen to you, but that doesn't give you an excuse to quit. You can keep going, you do what you can, you can still live, you can still have fun, you can still thrive in certain ways, but you get what's
Yes.
funny about the whole thing is you get all these people that want to send the opposite message. And it seems like if you're successful, then you've sent a terrible message to their ideology. You've sent a terrible message to what they believe is right. You've just basically crapped all over everything that they use to get by in life, and they don't like that. And then
Well,
I
and yet
found we have
they're
this
they're
entire
supposed to claim to do the opposite. And if there was anything
exactly.
remotely successful about so-called mental health or psychiatry, we wouldn't have any problems anymore now, would we?
No,
No.
we're pouring hundreds of billions of dollars into it.
That's it.
I remember when the defense budget was $300 billion, and now we have a 300 plus billion. We have a defense budget thing going on in our society, and I don't see any improvements whatsoever. It's another one of those things where the more money you pour into it, the more press it gets, the more it gets out there and spreads, the more people fall for it, the more the sickness spreads. And and self-harm would say, okay, let's start looking at people who are involved in these mass violence events, and we'll start seeing what they're taking. Now, probably what they're saying is there are a larger percentage of people who are taking those medications that aren't shooting anybody, so you really can't blame that. But that's really not the point, is it? The point is fundamentally there is a theory that's being run around that's being used to trump people's
Mhm.
constitutional, medical, and religious rights in courtrooms that trumps, overrules, I guess, a person's religious framework that they use to get by through life. It's way more insidious and way more nasty, and it's gone way deeper into our lives than it should have ever gone into. And it's
And look at
accelerating.
how many more
It's not.
people are committing suicide. Look at how many more people are dying young because of the effects of that crap,
Mhm.
and how much more the drugs get piled on and piled on and piled on, and the outcomes are worse and worse and worse. And it just
Yep.
defies any kind of logic. There is no logic to this. It's no kind of sensibility to this. And yet you're court ordering people to
No.
take poisons against their will. What actual hell is
Yeah.
wrong here? There is several things wrong with this picture, and this is what needs to be looked at because it's not remotely
Hmm.
sensible. This is really doing
No,
grievous, egregious harm to so many people.
it
And
is.
everything, the outcomes of this have gotten exponentially worse since these drugs are out there. You can look at Johnson and Johnson alone. Look how much money, time, and effort they put into just hiding the effects of the talcum powder being poisonous. Don't you? How does it
Right.
not occur to anybody? That's exactly what they're doing with these eugenics drugs. They already know that risperidone
Hmm.
causes all this other stuff, including breast cancer. Well, then why in the high holy hell is it still on the market? And why are you court ordering people to take it when you know that it does this? Because I even
Yeah.
saw in my
Yeah.
records, like I mentioned before, they were low key sending my medical records to a place called Zilio, who studies how cancer tumors form and treating cancer tumors. So I'm like, oh, so it's obvious you were going to give me cancer in order to do this. they were doing.
I don't put it past that. I don't put anything past
Yeah,
anybody after the stuff that I've gone through.
no,
I really don't. It's sad to say that, but when you get to the point where somebody's ideology trumps somebody's spiritual framework that they're using, and you're going to use courtrooms to ridicule people over things like that, override them and force them. No, no, taking a pill is the only thing that matters. Take the pill. It's the only thing that matters. I mean, you're denying someone's spiritual agency. You're denying the
yes,
power of choice. You're denying everything that works for in the AA program. I
that's
mean,
right.
where in the hell, how did this, crap take root? And thank God I'm declaring emancipation from it. I hope a whole lot more people jump on board and declare emancipation from it. Start demanding that the psych industry be excluded from your medical team under any and all circumstances. I have to go back to the VA, I think in a week or so. And no, next month I have to go back.
Okay.
So I go there once a year just to stay in their system. So this time I'm going to take my pictures and show them the aliens and go, you want to talk about aliens? You want to talk about a program that's really going to help people cut back on
Yes.
suicides? Because when I call the VA, what is the first thing I get? If this is a medical emergency, dial 911. If this is a mental health crisis, dial this. If you're feeling suicidal, dial this.
Yeah.
And the whole thing, two out of the three recommendations had to do with suicide. And what are they going to do? Take a pill, take a pill. I mean, we're sitting here talking about things that have helped us get through absolute hell, and it gives us an emotional relief valve that's incredibly powerful and effective, and it empowers you at a really, really deep level. But we can't even talk about it because we have to use the G word and the J word, the God and the Jesus word, in a factual context, which that's not allowed within the drug infrastructure because that says that wow, people can heal on their own with the help of God. Yeah, yeah, you really can. You really
Um,
can do that.
it's
And I
very
know that they
much,
don't want to promote.
yeah, it's a do it yourself thing. It's reconnecting with your natural abilities, with your natural connection with God, with Source, with one another. And
Mhm.
there is no middleman required.
Right.
And I think and it's transformative. I feel a great deal of peace. I have 2 years plus clean time. i
Hmm.
i don't have any desire to do anything because every day, because I can sit with my pain. I ain't able to move past my pain. Is my trauma a lot to process? Oh, you bet your sweet bippy it is. But
Mm.
having said that, I can process it. It does allow me to look at things, put them in perspective, be able to say in my head, listen, I forgive each of you because I understand how my lives, past and present, connect. I understand all time is now. I understand what vibration is. I use vibrational healing. I use frequency healing. I use nutrition. So this whole world has opened up to me of a different way of doing things that supports my transformation, supports my growth, allows my autism to actually work for me and not be something that's held against me. I'm not
Right.
having anybody now who's trying to, purposely shove my nervous system into such a state so they can come in and take over my life and steal my documents and all, just like what happened to me. I'm
Yep.
horrified that that happened, but that's why I talk about it, because it's like, well, if this can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And Mr. X even called me in my face a target and a linchpin. So I knew
Mm.
that there was like more going on to this than just what was on the surface. And that's
Right.
okay, because the more I was getting understanding of things, the more I was grasping concepts of math and sacred geometry and things that weren't necessarily at the top of my mind. And now I've gone back and I've gotten things from Monroe Institute and some of the more
Mhm.
other books from channeled people. Bashar in particular, Daryl Anka, a lot of what he says makes so much sense. What's the other gentleman's name? Lee Carroll, I believe. So we have a lot of these things now. Like I say, the fact that we have exposure coming at the same time as disclosure, it's not a mistake. It's being able to see the unity of the universe, because God didn't just create this earth. This is but one planet. Like Dolores Cannon had said, this is where you pass tests. This is a very
Mhm.
hard planet because it's a free will planet. And as we've seen in the Bible, some people choose to do evil with their free will, others choose good. But the fact is, God created all of it, even Satan. It's just a matter of what are people going to choose. And
Right.
and that's where what we as people are, we incarnate as humans to learn how to do that, to learn how to be like Jesus, to follow Jesus's example. That's what he came here for, to be an example, not start a religion. And we can see, the
Good
apostles
point.
didn't have it easy. We see what happens in Revelations, but it's always about forgiveness and love. So it's about
Right.
how do you go through these experiences, but still be able to say, at a distance, for sure, for a lot of people, I forgive you. Go with God, get right
Hmm.
with God. I will pray for you because I want you to have the peace that I know. Because if you have the peace that I know, you're not going to do this to somebody else. You're not knowingly going to hurt anybody else or any
Right.
other creature because that's just not in your heart. And
It's yeah.
you know,
Go through an immersive experience and that gets erased. And so
that's
you
it.
don't want that. But then at the same time, as we're here, we have to keep these people at bay because, well, I
Yes.
mean, I feel like, when I said the psych group is my enemy, they are because they
Yes.
they, they act that way. They
Right.
um they would kidnap me again tomorrow. If the exact same experience happened tomorrow, I'd probably stand a very good chance of getting re-kidnapped all over again, put through something very, very similar all over again
Yeah.
that was not helpful to anybody because that's the standard operating procedure. And until that
Yes.
quits, and there's evidence that that's quit, in other words, statutory evidence that it's quit. In other words, this stuff gets driven out of courtrooms where it never belonged in the first place because it's speculative, it's inane, it's harmful, and all the other things that we've talked about. It's time to pull the fangs out of these people because
Yes.
until that happens, you're at risk. And when you get sucked into one of those things, if you're in bad health to begin with, they'll push you into a health crisis. If you die from that health crisis, it was because you had a mental health problem that's caused a
Yes.
problem, and then it just made you go nuts, and your body just shut
Right.
down, and we don't know what happened. You'll get crap like that out of them. So
Right.
they're not benign. They're not safe. They're dangerous people until they get defanged and removed from the courtroom. Then I don't I keep up my I guess you could say attack it. Maybe I don't sound like there's a lot of forgiveness in my voice. Well, first of all, that person hasn't changed. When
That's
you're
it.
talking about the
That's it.
process of forgiveness, there has been no
That's it.
change. If you ran into some of the same people that abused you before and they tried to abuse you again, that forgiveness thing is like, look, okay, we're enemies all over again, aren't we?
That's it.
And so you really, I'm not going to let them take away from me. As I told someone who mentioned someone, I won't say her name, but I was in a doctor's office who said to me after I showed her the pictures of my spaceman friend, she said, they're going to lock you up. And I'm like, you know what? You're not going to get a chance to hurt me again
Yeah.
because if I go, the only words you're going to hear out of my mouth is if you want to accuse, put your name down and I'll see you in court. I've learned I'm not talking to him, period. Under any future
Same
kidnapping
here.
scenario, I'm clamming up and you can
Yeah.
just piss off because I won't talk to you. Done. And
Yep.
at that point, just I'm a coherent person. I have no need to be here. Leave me alone. There's no reason to even talk to you. We're done. Cut it
Exactly.
off. Cut it
Exactly.
down. Because
This
if
is
not, you're digging your own flipping grave.
it's modern day Nazis. There's no difference between them and the SS, the Goon Squad, the Stasi. No
Hmm.
difference. And that's how they need to be looked at, and that's how I look at them. And it's a whole system that needs to be exposed and torn down.
Yep.
What we need to do is be building straight up peer to peer communities that are self supporting, and get all this out of here. These drugs have
Yeah.
no place in a decent society. Period. They just don't.
So I'm going to be trying to do exactly what you talked about. I'm going to be using more biblical language to describe that because I feel like that's what I was. That's the thing I was put the stand up for, that you know, that really is transformative language. That really is
Yes.
process language that leads to an immersive experience. And I'm really not going to care what psych has to say about it, because I already know that they're hostile. I already know that they're, you know, if they can kidnap me, they will. But I'm just going to push back against it anyway, because I'm done. That's my liberation. I'm stepping into it. I'm not going to be intimidated in any way, shape, or form by this stuff ever again.
No.
So yeah, I feel a lot better after the emancipation discussion. I feel
Yeah,
better after this one too. I
I do
really do.
too. I
I
think
think,
it's important that that we're able to show that we're coherent, that we are able to discuss things in a very thorough and a very complete manner.
mm,
That we just don't tolerate any of this nonsense, that we've been abused, that we've been hurt, that this did not need to happen to either one of us. We already had health problems that they denied, and everything to them is
mm,
about denying that their drugs and their methodologies cause harm. They do cause
right,
harm. They are
right.
eugenics. These are modern day Nazis, and we don't have to tolerate Nazis in America, and
No,
we're not going to.
they have no business in our healthcare.
No, no business anywhere. You know,
Nope,
we're not to put up
we're
with that.
done.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, we've hit our hour. I'm gonna
Oh
have to
wow.
get going. I'm sorry, but we'd like to stick around some more, but I got to get going. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, Daniel. I'm sorry we didn't
Yeah.
get more space for you to talk. We just kind of got into our banner here and kept going. But what you're
And thank you
everybody's
for what you
welcome to
put in
join
the
us.
chat. That's much appreciated. I made a note of it. So thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
everybody take care. We'll be here next week and we'll see if we can get this movement going. So
Absolutely. We
thank
got a lot of momentum, and I think I know that people are more than ready to hear what it is that we have to say, and
I
are
think
more than
so.
willing to listen and join in with this, because too many people have been hurt for too long, and we haven't had that outlet and organization to make it stop. But we do now, and we're going to do
Yep,
it.
enough is enough. All
That's it.
right. Take care, everybody. See you
All
next
right.
week.
God
All
bless.
right.
See ya.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See ya.
Well,